Kitco Mining's special coverage of the Deutsche Goldmesse is brought to you by Defiance Silver.
Newmont could have a big presence in British Columbia if it's able to take over Newcrest. I am with Rob McLeod. He is CEO of Blackwolf Copper and Gold. Rob, welcome back to Kitco.
Guten Tag. Good to see you in Frankfurt, Michael.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us here at Deutsche Goldmesse. Now, talking about British Columbia, we're going to talk about Newmont and how it could have a big presence in British Columbia, but that really revolves around Golden Triangle, which you're very well acquainted with. You grew up in Stewart, which is in the Central Coast, but maybe help us first. What is the Golden Triangle and why is it such an important mining jurisdiction?
So the Golden Triangle is a belt of rocks in northwestern British Columbia and just skirts along the border with Alaska. And it's highly prospective for gold, silver, and copper deposits, primarily centered on gold mines. But it's a unique set of geological features that have allowed for both very, very high-grade deposits, such as Bruce Jack or Eskay Creek, as well as absolutely massive copper-gold deposits, such as, say, KSM, Galore Creek, or Red Chris. And so it extends most of the way up to the Yukon border, and extends as far south, just past my hometown of Stewart, to Kitsault, British Columbia, where there are some substantial deposits as well.
Now, Newcrest has been really big on the location because they came in with Red Chris, which used to be with Imperial Metals, which is the copper mine, a little bit off of the Golden Triangle, but we'll call it Golden Triangle approximate, and then also with the takeout Pretium. Now, Newmont, a handful of years ago, it took out GT Gold, which was like a developer. Talk about then if it is successful with this merger, Newmont is really going to have a big presence in the Golden Triangle in British Columbia.
Oh, by far, in terms of presence for gold in particular, in addition to Newcrest's 2 operating mines, they also have a substantial joint venture with Teck Resources, interestingly also allegedly in play, for the Galore Creek deposit, which is by far the richest copper and gold undeveloped deposit in the Golden Triangle. And it's has been on Teck's development pipeline maybe for 7 or 8 years from now, but Newmont already has a 50% ownership stake in that. So they're really going to be the major player for major mining companies operating in the gold space. And, we could see that, this acquisition of Newcrest might prompt some of the smaller companies to see some M&A activity from other producers. The jurisdiction is considered safe and stable for investment. So there's certainly a demand from producers to get into this type of jurisdiction, I believe.
Now, Rob, the Fraser report had its report on rankings. BC, I don't think did badly. It was like I seem to recall, like in between the 20 to 30 mark as well too. But it did come in for some criticism, and then I quote, British Columbia continues to perform poorly on the policy front, largely due to investor concerns over disputed land claims and protected areas. What are you seeing in terms of developing and pushing through projects in British Columbia?
Frankly, Mike, I see the opposite. I think the regulations for permitting, both exploration all the way up to development projects in British Columbia is excellent. It's timely. There's a clear set of rules for consultation with communities and in particular with Aboriginal groups. And if you do the process correctly in BC, you are going to get your permits. A lot of the Fraser Institute ranking, in my honest opinion, is very dated. Like 30 years ago, the government of the time expropriated the Windy Craggy deposit. There's still, the legacy of past government and past regulations still taints the jurisdiction. It's one of the hottest places in the planet right now, and it has been for the past half decade at least, in terms of exploration, discovery, and M&A. And the fact that projects such as Artemis's Blackwater deposit, very innovative permitting set of steps that Skeena Resources is taking on for restarting the Eskay Creek deposit. Are examples of the Ascot mine redevelopment project at Premier, British Columbia, just north of Stewart, are all examples of mines that are in development or positively in the permitting timeline. I think there's it's a lot of us in the industry really look at the Fraser ranking with a cynical eye. I think certainly in terms of British Columbia, saying that it shouldn't be ranked at 24. I think it should be in one of the top 5 personally, just based on the recent success of companies going through the permitting process.
That's surprising because British Columbia is within the second term within a left-leaning government, the NDP government. But you're still seeing is that I guess then that the government has been supportive of what's happening within the resource sector.
Oh, tremendously. There has been an overhaul of the permitting process. And it's really fair. It's fair and transparent. And actually, an example of the support the Premier of British Columbia for the left-leaning New Democratic Party, he was temporarily slated to be on the board of Teck Resources coal spin-out, metallurgical coal. So, I think since he retired as being Premier 6 months ago, he's entering back into industry in the mining side. And I think it's hats off to our industry. I'm very proud of the work that we've done to work with government and in particular with Indigenous communities to make sure that they are consulted and they are included in every step of the from exploration through to production and closure in the mine permitting process. BC is really a good place to look. So.
What's the next project? What are you keeping an eye on within the Golden Triangle?
Oh man, so there's it's still one of the hottest places on the planet for exploration and discovery. Goliath Resources found a really nice new gold deposit that they're going to have 4 drills on. I'm a bit biased on this one. I sit on the board for Dolly Varden Silver. Some of the step out holes that were drilled there at some of the significant deposits, are the highest grade intercepts in all the Golden Triangle. And so expect to see, there's a big 40,000 meter drill program there. So lots of great results, but watch for more M&A. There's development projects such as Skeena Resources might be getting to an attractive price for their really beautiful Eskay Creek restart project, 5 million ounces there, great project. I think the big one and there's been rumors and site visits and, it's a bit of a Northern Telegraph up there. The biggest prize of all up there in terms of size is KSM. And there's a lot of doubters on that project. But what the big miners want to see, the BHPs and Rios of the world, they want to see the 100-year mines. And the KSM deposit, where it's 100 million ounces of gold endowment, maybe this is the year where you actually see a transaction there. Brixton Metals, I like what they're doing up in the north with, they have a joint venture with BHP. Ascot finally has their full financing package for their Premier restart. And you could see a lot of the projects that are nearby Ascot, such as Scotty Resources. They have a really nice deposit called Blueberry that's sitting just to the north. Ascot's building a really big mill, 3,000 ton per day mill. And so you could see some of these other sort of peripheral plays at some stage play into utilizing that mill. Lots of other smaller companies that are out there drilling for discovery.
What would you guess would be the next mine in BC?
So, Artemis's Blackwater is being developed. Ascot's latest disclosure said that they expect early next year that Premier should be in declaring commercial production. I think the next project to be permitted to start will be the Eskay Creek restart project. Maybe Centerra with they had bought Comesse in Comesse North. You could see them make a decision to go ahead with a large underground block cave operation there as well. There's so many good, particularly for copper, gold, and silver exploration opportunities to look at if you're on the investment side, and if you're a major mining company on the M&A side, it's a great jurisdiction to look at.
Rob, let's head further east to Ontario. Now, there was a story, and it was an unfortunate story all through 2022, and that was Pure Gold falling apart, just not being able to get its project up to date, unfortunately going into receivership with its there. We heard, I think about 2 weeks ago, a week ago, that the Frank Justra has put together something in terms of kind of bringing back the asset, and also you were involved with this as well, I believe, in a technical help as well too. Talk about that. What's going on with the assets that were left over from Pure Gold?
Yeah, so I'm an advisor helping out Frank Justra with West Red Lake Gold Mines, and kind of started last December. There's an asset that West Red Lake has called the Rowan deposit, which is 900,000 ounces of inferred resources at 9 grams. And so, was helping them out in a bit of a technical capacity. And in January of this year, the outgoing CFO for Pure Gold, reached out to my business partner, Ryan Waymark, who's a mining engineer, and said, "Hey, you guys, are you interested in taking a look?" So we said, "Yeah, we should. We've read a lot about what went wrong, and usually you hear about the negative stories, and so we weren't going out there with, honestly, a very favorable eye. But when we got out to the site, we saw a substantial resource, a beautiful brand new mill, and a deposit that, if it had the appropriate amount of additional investment and the appropriate studies, could be a real going concern. And so we helped negotiate an acquisition from the receiver, because the asset was in bankruptcy, and we got what we think was a heck of a price. $6.5 million Canadian, and 24% of the shares of West Red Lake, to acquire a debt-free, fully permitted mine with $270 million in tax loss, a substantial resource, and tons of exploration upside. And now we have the luxury to step back, to do a lot of drilling to further expand the resources there, but significantly do the right things that need to be done to de-risk the project for a future restart. And so it's been pretty fun to be part of this. And we just announced a financing, raising $25 million, and we'll get out there and start drilling and try to put together a new plan. We're working on putting together an exceptional team of board of directors and complementary management pieces that we think we'll be able to execute. And the goal for the company would be to try to get up to the 5 million ounce range in terms of full resources, and in the next couple of years redo a feasibility study and ideally restart the mine at Madsen.
Roughly, what do you think the pieces are that need to be fixed in terms of actually kind of making this viable, Rob?
So it was pretty clear from our review, and really cognizant that this is a glass houses and a really hard business that will break your heart. The management team under Pure Gold did everything possible to sell the company. That was their goal, was to sell to a producer or somebody. And so what they did was they tried to reach certain milestones, like they wanted to deliver the mine on time and on budget. And so in order to do that, and it was also during COVID era, they deferred a lot of the initial CapEx into operating costs. Like, they leased whatever they could. Everything was leased out there. Leased a camp, leased water treatment facilities. They, even what was kind of the nail in the coffin for them last fall is they leased a mobile crusher. And the contractor that was operating it, crusher is a very key, obvious piece to a mill. it broke down for 2 weeks because they didn't have critical spares on site. If you own the crusher in your warehouse, you would have all the spares. So if something broke, you could fix it right away. And so what that did is it deferred all sorts of their costs into boosting up that operating cost. They were burning a tremendous amount of money every month. Additionally, in the zeal to get it into production, they started mining one of the lowest grade areas of the mineral resource, and they only had just a few working areas. They hadn't done nearly enough underground development. And that's pretty clear. They did an internal restart study where, there's substantially more underground development is required. You should probably have anywhere from 12 to 20 different working areas for a mine of that size. And so that underground development wasn't done. So it's a modest piece of additional work that would be required to get that development, so you'd have some nice 8 to 10 gram per ton resource to put in production when you would start. You always want to be mining, some of your highest grade material, ideally in that first year. And another thing that didn't get done was enough infill drilling. They tried a mining method that is a bulk underground technique called long hole stoping, and they were drilling on wide space drill holes. So like 25 meters apart in places. And if you're designing a stope based on that low data density, is you run the risk of external dilution because these ore bodies are never perfectly tabular. They have little rolls and kinks and stuff. And so I won't sugarcoat this aspect to what needs to be done. They need to do substantial infill drilling prior to doing, the appropriate resource and then reserve estimate and stope design around those ore bodies. Like, this was a lot of historic production here, and it was historically quite, narrower methods such as cut and fill or even shrinkage stope. Yeah. Those are still viable methods today if the grade supports it. So it's basically what the project needs is more drilling, more underground development, and just better organization and cost control of and sustaining capital to really get the project off to the good start that the asset deserves. And then finally, with the Rowan deposit that's already in West Red Lake, it's really good grade. Likely the plan will be to try to advance through infill drilling to include a resource component where you could truck the ore and use this sort of hub and spoke idea to process ore from some of these other smaller deposits elsewhere in the Red Lake camp, and to supplement production that could come from Madsen. One thing they really did a good job on was the mill. Like, they have it set up to expand that mill to 1,500 plus tons per day. It was permitted as an 800 ton per day mill. And so if you can find enough more feed, you can probably get this into a little bit more of a substantial operation than what was originally envisioned.
My apologies, Rob. You're CEO of Blackwolf Copper and Gold. We left it to last. But bring us, what's the latest?
Well, speaking of hub and spoke studies is a bit of the flavor of the day. So we've got two components. We'll start on the hub and spoke side. So we're working with 4 other mining companies, one of which is private, Newmont Moly, also with Dolly Varden, Coast Copper, Goliath Resources. And we're all jointly studying using the permitted Kitco site, which is a past-producing molybdenum mine located on Tidewater, to work together to study the viability of a central mill. And like the cost synergies are obvious, where you're sharing operating costs, but all the companies would be able to have the benefit of scale of the reduced operating costs.
Now, there's a lot of companies there that you mentioned as well too, and it's the one that you mentioned previously, Dolly Varden being one of the people that is involved.
Oh yeah. Dolly Varden has a silver and gold rich resource, but a lot of byproduct base metals such as zinc, and so the process flow sheet for all of these could really work well together. And so we expect some more news on that from each one of the individual companies going forward over the rest of the year. But really the big catalyst is back to the Golden Triangle. but on the Alaska side of the border, and literally within a couple hundred meters of the international border, we are going to be drilling the best drill target I've ever seen in my career. And at the risk of hyperbole, it really is. It's a 30-meter wide vein. It's outcropping in a very steep cliff. I can't believe this has been missed over the years. I myself drove past this, the cliff that it outcrops on hundreds of times, and had no idea that it was sitting there. And all the samples that we've taken average in around 30 grams per ton, so about an ounce of gold. There was some minor historic production, but it's never seen a drill hole. In fact, there's a whole series of these that are outcropping on the cliff. So with Blackwolf, we really wanted to drill it last summer. We didn't get our permits until September. And another thing I won't sugarcoat, Golden Triangle gets a whole heck of a lot of snow. We didn't manage to get out there and drill before the snow flew. So we will be back out there this spring to put the initial drill holes into it. Also, I mentioned with West Red Lake, working with Frank Justra, he loved this target so much, he came in to the company a couple of months ago, and he's bought a 17% stake by way of private placement. So we're cashed up. And we got a bunch of other targets that we're going to be working on the Alaska side of the Golden Triangle, but it's this Can-2 property that your viewers should really have on your screen come June and July when we put the initial holes into what is hopefully the next discovery in the Golden Triangle, albeit in the United States rather than Canada. And the great thing, it's right next to Ascot's mill that is currently being developed. So there's a nice potential site to process it. You can actually see the mill in construction right from the property. So it's pretty cool.
Rob, you're active on social media. What's your handle?
I'm at Goldfinder 12.
Goldfinder 12. Yeah, I always learn a lot when I follow you on Twitter. Much appreciated. So.
You must learn a lot about Vizslas, my favorite dog.
Rob, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Michael.
My name is Michael McRae here at Deutsche Goldmesse 2023 for Kitco Mining.
Kitco Mining's special coverage of the Deutsche Goldmesse is brought to you by Defiance Silver.